In my last video, I gave you my personal story and journey on how I overcame my issues with poor sleep, fatigue, and brain fog. In this video, I'm going to reveal 10 things that I discovered over the years to overcome these challenges without taking any medications. And as I mentioned in my last video, I made these two videos in response to the most common question that I get, which is, what am I doing to stay so healthy? You'll notice that you may have heard me mention many of these steps in the past. And that's because these are basic foundations for good health in general. These are the steps that I found helpful for me personally as well as for my patients before considering any formal treatment options for upper airway resistance syndrome or obstructive sleep apnea. The first step that makes me happy is if you click on the subscribe button below. All kidding aside, this is a serious matter, as your subscription helps my information reach more people who are struggling with their sleep and their health. Please help me to reach the 100,000 subscriber mark. And if you're already a subscriber, I want to thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Your support is what allowed me to reach an important milestone on YouTube where I just surpassed 5 million total views. This will give me more motivation to keep creating new content for you. And please remember to forward my videos to any family members or friends who may find this information helpful. Number 1 is to eat an early dinner and stop snacking afterwards as well. I always try to leave at least 3 hours before I go to bed. Again, this is to minimize stomach juices lingering in the stomach, so there's less of it to come up into the throat in case I stop breathing once in a while. Number 2 is to fully optimize my nasal breathing, especially at night. I always use nasal dilator strips to keep my nostrils from caving in. In the winter, I use a humidifier to keep my nose from being stuffy. Moisture in the air also helps to promote better mucus production and clearing. And here's another important point about why it's important to breathe through your nose. Your nose makes a gas called nitric oxide. When inhaled into your lungs, raises oxygen absorption by 10 to 20%. It also kills bacteria, viruses, and fungi. Additionally, if your nose is stuffy, you're more likely to open your mouth, which ends up pushing the base of your tongue backwards, which causes more obstructed breathing and acid reflux. This is why it's important to breathe through your nose all the time, except when you're eating, talking, or singing. Even when you're exercising, unless you're engaged in more strenuous exercises. Many people find that taping the mouth can help with sleep. There are commercially available options out there like Somnifix, which works pretty well. But I prefer to use regular 1-inch medical tape you get from the drugstore and apply it vertically from just under the nose to under my chin so it does a better job of keeping my jaws closed. If you keep only your lips sealed, then you can still open your jaws significantly, which can push your tongue back. Worst case scenario, you can still breathe in and out through the corners of your lips. I did a video about this, which you can find the link to down below. Number 3, I try to avoid any bright lights or electronic screens within 2 to 3 hours of bedtime. All my devices are set to turn off the blue light spectrum starting at 8 p.m. These days, I try to go out of my way to read paper books before bedtime. If I have to use my iPad mini as a Kindle reader, I set the screen intensity to very low, as well as changing a screen background color to something less stimulating on top of the blue screen filter. I've mentioned this before. Blue lights near bedtime lowers your melatonin sleep hormone. But one thing you may not realize is that melatonin also lowers your stomach acid production and insulin as well. So basically, it shuts down your digestive system, especially in the upper part. It also tightens the sphincter that closes off the top of the stomach, preventing juices from leaking up. Unfortunately, your melatonin levels start to drop as you get older, so it's even more important to follow this regimen. If you are already avoiding lights before bedtime and not eating late and still have acid reflux or can't sleep, then you may want to consider taking melatonin pills, but only a small amount, maybe 1 to 2 milligrams a few hours before you want to sleep. Number 4, this is the complete opposite of number 3. Once you wake up in the morning, get as much sunlight exposure into your eyes as possible. Open all your blinds and shades. Better yet, take a short walk outside, walk your dog, or go jogging around the block. It's important to reset your circadian sleep clock first thing in the morning by getting exposed to sunlight. For some of you who have dark winter mornings, using a bright full-spectrum bright light box for 15 to 20 minutes in the morning can be helpful. It can also help with seasonal affective disorder as well. Number 5, also related to the sun, I try to spend time outdoors as much as possible. The early morning and late afternoon hours have higher levels of near-infrared radiation, which has been proven to create melatonin in the mitochondria all over your body. It can actually penetrate a few inches through clothing and your skin, and melatonin has the benefit of acting as an antioxidant so that you can create more ATP energy packets. To get even more benefit from near-infrared light, I use a red light box on a regular basis all over my body, especially to treat muscle soreness, aches and pains, and especially cuts and bruises, which heals much faster. If you Google near-infrared light therapy, you'll see tons of helpful articles. And if you search on scholar.google.com, you'll see countless scientific studies and review articles on the health benefits of this new technology. Just to give you one extreme example, during the pandemic, Brazilian researchers took 30 hospitalized COVID patients and gave 15 of them red light vests to wear over the chest and upper abdomen. The red light therapy was applied for 15 minutes per day for 7 days, in addition to conventional therapy. Even though the group that received red light was much sicker based on the pneumonia severity index compared to the control group, they went home almost 4 days earlier at 8 days versus 11.7 days for the control group. Many other measured variables were significantly improved as well. This one study goes to show how powerful the anti-inflammatory effect of near-infrared therapy can be. Number 6 is that I supplement with vitamin D. Currently, I'm taking 5,000 units with vitamin K2 MK7 every day. Similar to near-infrared therapy, there are countless examples of improved health outcomes for this important hormone. The best way to get vitamin D naturally is through sunlight. Unfortunately, due to the fear of getting skin cancer, we as a society have cut down dramatically on outdoor sun exposure, in addition to adding sunscreen as well. While some skin cancers may be down just a bit, it's been suggested that all other cancers have gone up. I'll include a link to a table on all the studies that have proven health benefits for various conditions such as certain cancers, multiple sclerosis, heart disease, and allergies. Most of the older lukewarm vitamin D supplementation studies were done using very small amounts or given along with calcium, which is found to cause heart disease. But taking vitamin K2 along with vitamin D is thought to divert calcium from blood vessels to the bones, making them stronger and lowering your risk of heart disease. Number 7, I eat salt liberally. I know that doctors, the American Medical Association, and the World Health Organization strongly recommend eating a low-salt diet. However, recent studies are questioning this recommendation. There are countries like Japan that ingest much higher amounts than what doctors recommend, but as a whole, the Japanese are much healthier than Americans. Other studies have shown that the lower your salt intake, the higher the likelihood that you'll die earlier. And people who have higher salt intake tend to live longer. The Cochrane collaboration, one of the most respected unbiased research organizations, did a thorough review of all the studies on salt and overall health. What they found was somewhat disturbing. Researchers found that salt restriction lowered blood pressure by an insignificant amount, but unfortunately raised levels of a number of important hormones and other risk factors, which is concerning. These were angiotensin, sympathetic tone, and cholesterol. It even worsened diabetes. Ironically, doctors give medications to lower these 4 measurements. In another study, giving a low-salt diet raised the risk of dying by over 150% in people with heart failure. I think one of the reasons why salt is demonized is that it's much more common in junk food or highly processed foods. So these studies done long ago were lumped into people with potentially unhealthy eating habits. It's also very hard to measure exactly how much salt you eat. And many of these studies measure total urine sodium levels, which assumes that the same amount of salt you take in is what comes out at steady-state levels. This can't be further from the truth. Your body either holds onto or excretes sodium depending on what else is happening. For example, higher levels of insulin and glucose in the bloodstream causes the kidneys to hold on to sodium. So this points to all the metabolic concepts that I keep talking about in my more recent videos. Obviously, you shouldn't go crazy and go all out eating salty foods, but the best way to handle this if you're eating a SAD or standard American diet is to cut out all junk and processed foods, as well as all sugary drinks, including juices. Season healthy, home-cooked meals with sea salt, kosher salt, or Himalayan pink salt. You can also look into Redmond sea salt, mined from the deep seabeds in Utah, with reportedly no plastics and lots of trace minerals like the other salts mentioned. So the bottom line is, eat enough salt to taste. Most importantly, aim to reach an optimal metabolism through a healthy diet, good quality sleep, enough sunlight, removing toxins, exercise, and lower stress. If your body is healthy, your kidneys will hold on to or get rid of sodium as needed. Number 8, remove fluoride from your drinking water. Despite the medical and dental profession's claims that small amounts of fluoride are good for your teeth, that argument is getting weaker and weaker all the time as more and more areas in the US and other countries are starting to ban it. In fact, most of Europe has banned it based on more recent studies showing that it does nothing to prevent cavities. There are lots more studies showing that even small amounts lower than what the CDC and the FDA say are not safe and can affect the body in negative ways, especially as an endocrine disruptor. The most concerning one is that consistently across the board, communities with fluoride in the water have lower IQ levels in children. Fluoride also competes with iodine, causing hypothyroidism, and gets taken up by the pineal gland, ultimately lowering your sleep hormone, melatonin. Unfortunately, you can't filter out fluoride using the standard water filters in pitchers or units that are built into your refrigerators. The most cost-effective way is to invest in a reverse osmosis filter system, which you have to install under your sink. There's an added benefit with these filters since they significantly lower dozens of other known cancer-causing toxins as well. There are some systems that are countertop models and even some non-reverse osmosis systems, but I'd wait on outside testing before looking into these models. You can also drink bottled water, but many water brands have fluoride. I'll place a link to a website where you can search for water companies that have or don't have fluoride. One additional troubling fact is that the plastics used in many water bottles have significant amounts of microplastics and endocrine disruptors as well. This is why I take my reverse osmosis filtered water with me in stainless steel containers when I go out. One last mention about reverse osmosis systems. It works so well that even calcium, magnesium, sodium, potassium, and other various trace minerals are removed. Most reverse osmosis systems have ways to add some of these minerals back. You can even add a bit of sea salt or Himalayan pink salt, or you can even add trace mineral drops as well. Number 9, I eat lots of fermented foods. I'm fortunate that I eat Korean meals almost every day, which includes regular servings of kimchi. I remember as a young child, mothers would get together in the fall to make huge volumes of many different kinds of kimchi to have enough to last through winter. As I mentioned before, kimchi is considered a national treasure, and you'll find countless research studies touting the various health benefits of eating this fermented spicy cabbage side dish. But there are many other varieties of fermented foods all throughout the world, such as sauerkraut, yogurt, kefir, kombucha, pickles, miso, natto, apple cider vinegar, and raw cheeses from goats, sheep, and A2 cows. There have been countless studies on the health benefits of fermented foods. But for kimchi in particular, it's been found to be helpful for gut health due to lots of probiotics, especially the lactobacillus species that make lactic acid. It's also found to have anti-inflammatory properties and was also found to raise vitamin D receptor activity. And all the ingredients provide plenty of vitamins A, C, and K, and iron as well. And number 10, I go out of my way to eat healthy, high-fat foods. I try to avoid any food product with the words low fat, reduced fat, no fat, or skim. This trend came about in the 1970s to 80s, suggesting that eating saturated fat led to more heart disease. And this led to the medical and pharmaceutical organizations recommending eating a low-fat diet and lowering your cholesterol levels, since having high cholesterol was thought to lead to more heart disease. More recent well-designed studies have shown that while having very high cholesterol did show more heart disease, having low cholesterol was associated with much higher rates of heart disease and overall death rates. In fact, people in countries who ate less meat died much earlier, and vice versa. As a result of this misguided thinking, it may have contributed to our country's obesity epidemic, as well as with the explosion of metabolic dysfunction and diabetes. And saturated fat has been vilified as well. However, there are studies showing people on very high-fat, low-carbohydrate diets have no cardiovascular risk factors, especially with no blockage of the heart vessels on a coronary calcium score heart scan. And this gets a little bit more complicated, but it's been shown that not all LDL is bad. There are good LDLs, also called light buoyant, and bad LDLs called small dense. People on the meat-only carnivore saturated fat-rich diet can have very high levels of LDL, but only the healthy types, and the coronary calcium heart scan is completely clean of any heart disease. However, unsaturated fats that are found more often in seed oils can be more easily oxidized, which can lead to DNA damage and aging. Certain seed oils also tend to have more trans fats, which are known to be dangerous to your heart. And you're much more likely to be exposed to trans fats if you eat out, even at high-quality restaurants. All of this makes sense since lowering fat and salt in our foods makes it less palatable, and so the food industry had to add much more sugar or high fructose corn syrup. Another reason to eat more fat in your diet is that you need fat to be able to absorb the fat-soluble vitamins such as A, D, E, and K. Plus, the government's recommendations to eat more whole grains and other carbohydrates fuel this problem even further. On top of this, we're now consuming much more highly processed seed oils such as canola, corn, rapeseed, soy, cottonseed, and others. These oils have a very high omega-6 to 3 ratio, and this has been shown to be a major driver of metabolic disorders, heart disease, as well as cancer. So all this about what I eat isn't just about eating more fat in my diet. It's part of a lifestyle that I choose to live to improve and maintain my health. One of the best ways of killing many birds with one stone is to cook and eat at home. There's a lot more nuance to this issue, but this way, you know what's going into your body. And you can always take your leftovers with you to work. Items 1 through 9 are also incorporated into my daily rhythms and lifestyle. I don't always accomplish everything on the list, but I try my best without stressing if I can't do it. Even if I do skip a few steps for a few days, my healthier body will have better reserves to bounce back quickly. I have many more health tips and habits that I can talk about, such as what I do to exercise, toxin elimination for my home and personal care products, and even stress reduction, but I'll leave that for future videos. Notice that everything that I mentioned on this list is something you've heard me say many times before on my channel. Ultimately, to be truly well and healthy, there's no one food, supplement, or pill that you can take. It's a combination of many lifestyle habits and the right mindset to prioritize one's health for the future. I gave you all the things that I do to stay healthy in my mid-50s. It's even more relevant to me now since I'm seeing close friends or relatives in their 50s with cancer or heart disease, or even die unexpectedly. If you found this information helpful, please subscribe now by clicking the button down below. By doing this, more people will be able to access this information, and it gives me more motivation to continue making these videos. Thanks again for watching. If you're still struggling with waking up at night to empty your bladder 1 or more times, click on the video up here to find out what the surprising answer is and what you can do about it.